Welcome to another edition of the Hot Seat Interview for AMovieGuy.com. I am your host, Leo Brady. I am incredibly excited to be here today with somebody who really doesn't need an introduction, in my opinion, but he is a two-time Golden Globe winner, been nominated for countless amounts of Emmys. You all remember him from The X-Files and so many other things. Please welcome David Duchovny.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, David. So typically the first question that I ask is, what movie or cinematic moment for you made you say, I want to be an actor?
I think it was probably Brando and The Godfather, as cliche as that might seem.
Yeah.
Just Brando in general, Brando and anything. Not Brando and Superman, but Brando and everything else.
On the waterfront and all the other
I
stuff.
don't think I saw it on the waterfront as a kid, but
Yeah.
Definitely The Godfather. What else am I thinking of? Even like Guys and Dolls.
Yeah.
Streetcar. All of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great answer. I think that's one of the first times we've actually heard that film. I heard Jurassic Park a lot from a lot of directors. So as I go over your career, though, I think a lot of people might be surprised to know that, like, you've written books, you're a musician, and then you're this great actor as well. You're a multifaceted person creating in the arts. Are you able to choose of those three? What do you love to do the most, or is it just all about creating?
Those are all like different instruments, if you think of it that way. Guitar, piano, drums, whatever. I don't know which is which, but it's like, you're just trying to make music, and by music I just mean, expressing whatever it is you're trying to express. And if you have the luxury of having like three different forms at your disposal, then you can kind of figure out, well, what is this? Where does this one live?
Yeah.
And it just kind of lights up different parts of your brain, I guess. That's how I'd say it. And I wouldn't want to choose. I don't think I have to.
You're right.
But I will say that each kind of feeds the other. Especially because I came to music fairly late. I mean, even though I didn't publish books till late, I've always written, and I've always considered myself a writer. But music came out of left field. And there's something about trying something that's really new that makes you feel new, makes you feel young and inexperienced, because you can get jaded. I've been acting for 30 years. It can be like, you lose a little bit of the shine, and it kind of that the shine that you get from doing something new kind of carries over into other things as well.
Yeah, well, I have to imagine too, as you said, it kind of makes you feel fresh too, because if you spend more time on the music and then you get back to the acting, you're like, oh, okay, I'm glad to be flexing that muscle again, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and it's interesting too for your career, the diversity in your career. You X-Files with science fiction and Zoolander with comedy, Pet Sematary, Bloodlines recently for horror. Like, what do you credit for that ability for that diversity? Does it go as far back as like even when you started off Broadway?
You know, I think mostly it's just project by project trying to find something, that interests me, and whatever that genre is. If I'm interested in it, the character of the story, I'm interested in it, or working with that director or this director or whatever.
Yeah.
To be honest, in the beginning, I'm not making choices. I'm just trying to survive. So the fact that most people would their first experience of me is going to be X-Files, that doesn't mean that I was looking for a science fiction show. I was looking for any show,
Right.
And I'm just lucky that it happened to be the X-Files. So I've never really like excluded any kind of genre or even like thought. I mean, maybe after X-Files, I looked for comedy.
Yeah.
I'll say that time where I was like, that guy was kind of straight laced. The show is dark and kind of somber. I'm going to look for some kind of comedy, and that's kind of what forced me to like a Californication kind of a vibe there.
Yeah. Yeah, that also kind of brings me to my next question too, because I actually watched a couple of like your other interviews that you've done, and you talked about like I think it was for Vanity Fair, you were going through like a lot of roles in your career, and you talked about like sort of like a stopping to smell the roses kind of thing, how you didn't want to reflect on a lot of the shows. You were always like, what's next? Is
Yeah,
is that still sort of an attitude that you take, or have you sort of settled down a little bit more and been able to say, hey, I need to appreciate what I'm doing here.
I appreciate what I'm doing. It's more like, I think even more so, it's still what's next, but that's only because I think what I've come to appreciate is the process of making these things, even more. It's great to be part of something that's great, or to be proud of your work, or be proud of the product or whatever.
Yeah,
But ultimately, it's about, the process of trying to make something, the process of trying to execute a vision of some kind.
yeah,
And and I value that more and more. So yeah, it still is what's next, because what's the next process? What's the next challenge? What's the next thing that I can kind of work these things through?
yeah. Yeah, well, an interesting thing too is that your daughter has become a relatively successful actor right now. I mean, and
Yeah.
that's something that like was that something that you were like, you're a bit when she tells you, "Hey, I'm going into that what that thing that you're doing too." Are you like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa," or are you just like, "Hey, like good luck." Because it's scary to start anew and start
Yeah.
that career. And I could imagine, being an actor and having that background, it kind of scares you when your kids are doing it.
Absolutely. It's not a profession with any kind of job security. It's hard to have longevity in a career. There's a lot of waiting. Even the best and hardest working actors seem to be miserable, half the time. So uh, the job satisfaction is very personal, but it's fleeting.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, what you want for your kids is security.
All right.
So acting is not what you would choose, but my daughter's passionate about it. So I was overjoyed that she was passionate about something. If she had been passionate about something else, I would have been overjoyed. I just want for my kids to be engaged and to be involved in their own lives. And my daughter, I think she likes acting more than both her parents ever did, which I think is a wonderful thing. I mean, she
Right.
really, really loves it. So more power to her.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, so the movie we're here to promote today is called Adam the First. Can you tell me a
Yeah,
little bit about how you got involved with that film and sort of the excitement you had to take this role? It may feel like a small role, but your character lingers along throughout this entire
yeah, yeah. There's no such thing as small roles, only small actors, right?
Right,
So,
right,
so, and I think uh, when you're playing a small role in a movie or a show, the actor can't play it as if it's small. You actually have to play it a little bigger because you want to make an impression if you're not going to be around.
right,
And we don't walk around our own lives thinking that we're minor roles in our own lives. We think that every character thinks that the movie's about him.
right.
So that's kind of a mindset to bring to a role like this. But
Yeah,
what I liked about the script, what Irving Franco seemed to be trying to do was it was almost like a mythological. It wasn't like a realistic portrayal of a father and son relationship, or a coming of age story, but it was more like a myth, or a Bible story or something. There was something kind of otherworldly about it that I really liked, and I hadn't really seen that before. Come my
yeah,
way anyway.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, and it's interesting too because I've noticed even with Pet Cemetery and stuff, you've been taking a little bit more roles where you do play that sort of father figure, but you've played a lot of different types of dads. I mean, I was a huge fan of Californication. I mean, you talk about
Yeah,
that type of father versus this type of father. I mean,
yeah.
when you're playing in that role, is it just, play it naturally, or is it like, hey, I'm just going to put on different hats and, this can be a different type of dad in this movie?
Well, like, yes, it's going to be different depending, obviously, on the circumstances
Right.
and the tone of the movie. But the concerns of fatherhood you're going to have to bring them to bear if the show is going to have any kind of reality or any kind of emotional power to it. You
Right.
can't play the movie. You have to play the character.
Right.
And same with Hank, his fathering style. They're all very different types of men who are hold on, who are they're in very different circumstances. But I think a father's love is something that joins them all together, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Well, and then the lead of this film is Oakes Fegley. I mean, he
Yeah,
really is a spectacular actor, especially for his age. Can you tell
yeah.
me sort of what is that experience when you're working with somebody who may be new and upcoming? Are you basically like, I treat every actor the same, no matter what their age is, and let's just go? Or is it have a conversation with them and get to know each other first, and then you guys can dive in?
Well, often younger actors, being closer to childhood, that they have a certain freedom, that is, and a certain imaginative freedom that adults lose, and adults have to like work their way back to that kind of relaxation and
Right.
freedom. So I'm often like, I'm watching the younger actors because I'm like, yeah, they're they're not trying too hard. They're really just living in a creative space. And Oaks, because I could be Oaks's father, in the age difference and everything. It
Right.
was very, very easy to kind of just strike up some kind of a relationship with him for the days that we were working. It was easy to kind of fall into an older person, younger person rhythm. And I think he's a very talented young guy.
Yeah, yeah, it's impressive. He really does carry the film, and as you said, the film has a lot of heavy weight about fathers and sons and
Yeah,
their relationships, and I loved that entire sort of message about it.
yeah.
Um, so okay, well, my last question before I let you go, this has been great. This may be a difficult question. You probably get asked it all the time, but you have to choose between your two favorite characters that you've played, between Fox Mulder and Hank Moody, two totally opposite ends of the spectrum of people. Who are you picking? Who would be your favorite one that you were in your career?
Oh gosh. I'd be lying to have to pick. It's like
It's your
chocolate,
children.
chocolate and vanilla. Yeah, it's like my daughter and my son. I couldn't, or my son and my son. I couldn't. I couldn't. If you ask me a question like, who would you rather hang out with, or who would you rather like
Well, I
have
think the
as
answer is Hank Moody for that question.
yeah, I was hoping it'd be easier like that, where you're gonna go with it, but I can't choose. Mostly because I have such love for the people that I did those shows with. I would never, I even if I had something in mind, which I don't, I wouldn't say.
Yeah. Well, David Duchovny, thank you so much for talking with me today. Your film Adam the First is opening in theaters February 14th. We thank you so much for your time. Take care.
Thank you,
Thank
thank
you.
you. You too.
Yep.
Pleasure. Thanks.